What up? What up? What up? So, as y'all know, it's Friday night, which means, as usual, your boys are going to be in the building. And it's the Play Callers. Your boy, Cool McCain, and I'm joined by my co host.
Y'all know who it is. It's your boy, Stephen Box.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And for those who may be new, for those who may not know, just going to quickly remind you of who we are. And I also want to add that because I've never been here before, I don't know how to act, I'm going to do this again.
To win the NBA championship. And here we go. Lowry looks in. Inbound. Over Sturz. Lowry three. That one misses. Rebound down to KCP. 8 seconds left to go. Casey's across the timeline. And he'll dribble it out. The 47-year wait is over. The Denver Nuggets stand on top of the NBA world. They are champions. And Nuggets fans from sea to shining sea can rest or die in peace.
Oh my God.
It never gets old for me.
Oh, is it over? I wasn't paying any attention.
That never gets old for me. But, ladies and gentlemen, y'all know how we get down up in the spot. Lots of things happening in the world of sports. ESPN, of course, massive layoffs. We could take the time to go through every individual person, but you've heard that multiple times by now. It's highlighted by saying Jeff Van Gundy was among those let go. Jalen Rose was as well as others. So the question I'll pose to my co-host is simply this: did you see the layoffs coming? And if you did, um, are you surprised at who was let go? And do you think that this is the end of the layoffs from ESPN?
So, I didn't really see the layoffs coming. To be fair, I don't really pay much attention to ESPN, right? Ever since they decided that they were going to go on a personal witch hunt after my Seminoles back in 2014, ESPN pretty much died to me. So I can't say I saw it coming. Now, maybe there's people out there that watch ESPN more that did see it coming, but unless one of my teams is on ESPN, I don't watch it. So I guess my thing is I feel like there might be other people out there that might feel the same way as me, right? Where not necessarily because their team was getting crapped on, but just the quality of ESPN has gone down. I've heard a lot of people who love kind of the opinionated, over the top stuff that love ESPN, but people who don't necessarily care for that, people who actually want to talk intelligent sports, have gotten to the point where they don't really like to watch ESPN anymore. And so I've heard this from a lot of people over the last couple of years because when you share with people that you don't watch ESPN, people are a little bit more willing to tell you they don't watch either, right? So I'm not surprised by it, even though I didn't see it coming. Now, I am a little bit surprised by some of the firings. I mean, you mentioned Van Gundy. I mean, think about how crazy it is that you consider this guy good enough to be your announce team, right, for the NBA Finals. Yet now here you are like a month later firing him, right? So to me, some of the firings were a little bit crazy in terms of that. Some of the older people that have been there for a very long time that you let go of are also a little bit of a surprise. I don't know if this is the end or not because I don't really know. I haven't looked into it too much to see if there's a reason for them. So if you know why, feel free to enlighten me here. But I don't know if this has to do with some of their plans for streaming their own stuff and need to cut back on some of the costs or whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is not the end.
So, for those of you who may not have seen the full list, I'll just go ahead and give you the full list here. I didn't highlight a couple of people. I'll give the full list here. So, Max Kellerman, Keyshawn Johnson, Matt Hasselbeck, Chris Chelios, Steve Young, Rob Ninkovich, Neil Everett, Ashley Brewer, June Lee, LaFonso Ellis, Todd McShane, Jason Fitz were also let go, besides who I mentioned earlier. So just some other names that were also part of who was let go at ESPN. So afterwards, Stephen A. Smith, of course, had some comments. Um, I'm not going to take the time to go into detail on Stephen A. Smith's comments, but essentially he was saying, hey, he doesn't believe that the firings are over. More could be coming. And, he could also be part of that. And he said something that I have to kind of put out there.
Okay.
But basically, and this is paraphrasing his words, but basically he was saying when Caucasian people, I'll use his words, when white folks are being let go, then yes, I also have to be concerned, about my job. This does have a lot to do, I think, with Pat McAfee being brought on to ESPN, and the fact that he is a guy that is going to garner a lot of coins. Just Disney and whole, right? And they're part of Disney is doing a massive layoff right now. Numbers aren't recovering like people thought they were after COVID, because people are realizing, hey, after 2 years of not going out, not doing some of the things that I was doing before, they're not going back to it. The way that ESPN did their shows does not necessarily work anymore. You have so many podcasts like this one and so many other great podcasts that are out there that people are independently doing. We're putting the time and effort into a specific thing. ESPN things, they want to cover everything. Basketball, football, baseball, hockey, soccer, tennis, golf, everything, right? Badminton, pool, World Series of Poker, just everything. So I think what you're starting to see is people saying, you know what, instead of me sitting in front of ESPN, listening to them, and I'll use the words of Stephen A. Smith, bloviate about the same topics and the same things over and over and over again. You can go, if you want to hear about those, you can watch that. But if you want to hear about other things, there's so many other sources out there that you can go to and actually get good quality information. So I think people are starting to say, you know what, I'll check ESPN out. When they spend an hour talking about the Dallas Cowboys, it's time to move on, because I don't care about the Dallas Cowboys for an hour. And no disrespect to you, but we talk about LeBron James and Lakers for an hour. I don't want to hear about that for an hour unless I'm a Lakers fan, right? I don't mind hearing about them, but why is it consistent, big segments, large chunks of shows taken up talking about just the same teams?
Yeah.
So we're starting to see people say, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not dealing with y'all. I'm good. I'm going to go do my own thing. So I think we're starting to see that that's happening, and that's one of the reasons why these layoffs happen, as well as, for me, Pat McAfee and the amount of money he's going to be paid coming in. Now, Stephen A. Smith is right in the fact that he could be laid off, because he's making a lot of money if his show does not produce the numbers that they expect. Because don't never forget, Max Kellerman would not have been laid off if Stephen A. Smith didn't get him removed from First Take, because Max was killing Stephen, according to the people who watch the show every day. I saw clips. I don't watch ESPN that much anymore. Every once in a while, I'll catch out like their NBA show or their NFL show, or sometimes their college shows, but I don't watch any of the morning shows. A lot of the people I don't watch anymore, just because it's gotten to that point.
Yeah.
Over sensationalization of just certain things, and not really focusing on sports as a whole, or what you claim to cover as a whole. Yeah. So I think people are getting tired of it, man. They're just getting tired of it. The numbers are going down, and if you're not getting the numbers, you're not getting the money from marketing from the other companies that are pouring funds in. So you don't have as much money. I'm sure this is probably the third or fourth straight time that they have not been successful as they need to be. So at a point, you got to start cutting people. Unfortunately, some of the people they cut probably shouldn't have been cut. But you know what? It is what it is. It happens. It happens to us all. I think we've all been let go from a job that we probably shouldn't have been before. It's kind of what happens. So hope a lot of those guys, I think, will land on their feet A lot of them have the credibility to do their own podcast. I'm sure Fox Sports is going to be trying to gobble a few of them up, and we'll see where things go. But it is interesting that the worldwide leader in sports, as they call themselves, drastic cuts going on. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I
When I
mean,
come across.
the thing is, man, like you say that, Max Kellerman was killing Stephen A. Smith. Just what I'm going to say about Stephen A. Smith. I think there are two different versions of Stephen A. Smith. There's Stephen A. Smith who actually knows sports, who actually can talk sports, who's actually very intelligent when it comes to sports. And then there's Stephen A. Smith that shows up in the studio. And it's not the same guy. So to me, I'm not surprised if anybody is out arguing Stephen A. Smith, because it's not difficult to out logic someone whose entire, we're going to say character, because I feel like he's playing a character on the show, is to yell and say outrageous things and create controversy, just like his best buddy Skip.
Makes sense. So yeah, did have that, of course. So next thing we'll move on to is have a situation with Mr. Damian Lillard. So he has officially asked for a trade since our last show. All the rumors and reports are pointing to him wanting to only go to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you, and then of course you could talk about how you feel about him only wanting to go to Miami, is besides Miami, what do you think would be another, let's say, two teams that he would be a great fit for? Considering the fact that the Portland Trailblazers, according to reports, also want 4 first-round picks back for him and possibly other compensation.
Yeah, so the compensation, they said they actually want not only the 4 picks, but they want 2 quality players also. Which I'm not sure how they're defining 2 quality players in this particular instance, right? So the issue here is, I said it last week, right? Portland has basically decided they really don't want to let him go. They basically have kidnapped this dude and they're holding him hostage. So at the end of the day, if this is really what they want, if they really decide they are not going to let him leave for anything less than what this asking price says, the question I have is, where can he go and them still be able to keep enough talent for them to be able to compete? Because I don't even necessarily feel like he makes Miami good enough to put them over some of the teams from the West to win a championship, even if they give up no players at all. If they have to give up 2 quality players in addition to the draft picks, that's not him, because at the very least you're going to lose some depth, right? And your depth already took a little bit of a hit in the offseason, to me anyways. So I have some concerns about them, right? I mean, you look at some of the other teams that are out there right now. Obviously people are going to talk about Philadelphia, right? That's going to be another team that I think people are going to look at because they were close. Milwaukee, I think, is a team I haven't heard a lot of people talk about yet, but you could start to hear something on. Him and Giannis both kind of have that mentality of not being a part of a super team, so maybe they'll not want to be a part of a super team together. I don't know. But that is a team that they won a championship and they've kind of struggled to get back there. So they might be looking to make that splash move. And then a team who obviously has been on the cusp a couple of times, is looking for some way to get something to happen, is Boston. And Boston might be that one team that might have enough depth that they might be able to trade away a couple of pieces and get him without it too much impacting them negatively.
So what's up, Big Ben, the owner, operator, and manipulator, as Cole says, of the PS3 network. Appreciate you checking in with us. For me, what I'll simply say is this. So we have the obvious teams, which you know kind of went over. But think about a team like Sacramento. Sacramento has enough young talent where they can say, you know what, if we add a Damian Lillard to this team, we're a team that could have a possibility to try to rival Denver, you know, in the West. Not necessarily say that they'll beat Denver, but at least that would put them, I think, that veteran, that leader, that guy that you don't necessarily need the entire season, but you just need him about that second half of the season to the playoffs. You can manage his minutes so that he's not playing 40 minutes a game. You know, try to keep him healthy. Put
Right.
him on a team with a bunch of young guys that played above expectations, I believe, last year. So I think Sacramento would be a great place for him. I know he doesn't want to be part of a super team. Just think if you were to somehow find a way to get him at Phoenix, how crazy that would be. Money may not work, but I'm just saying we're not talking about those things.
I mean,
Um,
you add him to Phoenix. I'm still gonna say the same thing I've said up to this point. Who's playing defense?
I mean, they're going to have to outscore everybody. That's why you try to go get everybody to score because you're going to have to outscore everybody.
Yeah, I just don't know that adding Lillard necessarily makes you that much better though. Like, how many more points are you really gonna score with him?
Probably based on what you have now, you're probably going to score another 15, 20 points a game. But based on him and what he's going to bring to your team, because he's going to be a guy that's going to facilitate for you better than anybody that you have on the team now. He understands how to play the point guard position. He can drop 40 when needed, but when not, he can just continue to play the game that he plays.
Yeah. So that to me that's the question mark with him, right? Is does he really add enough for them to go out and outscore everybody? Because
Very
look,
true.
we said it when KD went to Phoenix. At the end of the day, until he proves otherwise, we're all going to look at KD and say, until you went to Golden State, who won the championship the year before without you, you haven't won anything.
This is very true. That is an interesting point, and I think that's the thing. Whether you add him or not, you're going to have that. You know, but you have to look at teams who could really use an upgraded point guard and who probably at least have the picks that they can make the trade. Because I feel like I know what they're saying that they want, but at the end of the day, there's only going to be one team he's going to go to. So it's a matter of what that team is willing to give you more so than anything else.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's ultimately going to come down to, is Portland going to be willing to come down on this price a little bit, right? Or is their definition of quality players a little bit, lower than what we might expect it to be, right? Are they just looking for some solid role players, or are they looking for potential starters? Because several of the teams out there that would make sense for him, they have to give up 2 potential starters. That could be problematic.
Well, I think for me, I simply say they're not going to get what they want. You're asking for too much. You're asking for a Rudy Gobert type package, and you're not going to get that anything close to that. That was the big mistake. It set a bad market, and now teams have an unexpected um, price market on what they can get for a guy. So that's definitely a big part, I think, of what we're getting. But you're bidding against yourself because there's no other team that's going to get involved. Because according to reports, and again, these are reports, this hasn't come from Damian Lillard's mouth. The reports are his agent has said if you trade for us and you're not Miami, you're going to get a disgruntled guy that's not going to come and give you what you expect because doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, I would say if that's true, whether that's something that you said or not, that's not something that you want your agent to be doing and getting put out in the media. So that's another concern.
Yeah.
Why is this kind of information getting out? We've had players do this before
Mm.
in this era, but still, this information getting out, that's a little concerning as well. So just another, thing to look at on the back end when you're kind of evaluating this situation.
I will say this though, right? So I think there's a little bit of gamesmanship here, right? Is this idea of what they're asking for is this the Miami price? Right. So in other words, they know they're probably not going to ultimately get this, but they're going to say, this is what we want from Miami. Oh, you want to force your way to Miami? Fine. This is what we want from Miami. And so now either there's going to be a negotiating period where we go back and forth and maybe end up settling on something. But in the meantime, the hope is that you'll say, you know what, or that Miami will say, you know what, we're not giving you that, we're out. And now that forces Dame to have to allow other teams to come into negotiations. If they can get Miami to back out because the asking price is too high, that forces Dame's hand. Doesn't matter where you want to go if the team doesn't want you.
Portland's going to look bad if they don't trade Damian Lillard.
Portland already looks bad.
They're going to look even worse. If they don't trade Damian Lillard, they're going to look really bad. They're going to get a guy who's not going to give them their all. And you drafted Scoot Henderson. So you're basically saying we're moving on. You already have Anthony Simons, and now you drafted Scoot Henderson. So you're basically saying you're moving on. So if you don't go ahead and pull the trigger like you should, and I mean, hey, it's on you. But you're going to look bad, and it shows a lot of dysfunction that a guy that was loyal to you when he could have left stayed. And now because you went and drafted the guy that's going to be his replacement, he's like, okay, you already got my replacement. I'm trying to roll out. That's what this boils down to. I mean, we can say it all kind of different ways, and Portland could try to play tough ball and do all this foolishness, but you're going to look worse the more you do. The smartest thing to do is get with Miami. That's where he wants to go. Find a package that works and make the move. I know people have said in the national media, like, oh, that doesn't work well for Portland. Portland needs to maximize what they can get for Damian Lillard. You already had a number 3 pick. Sit down. You get some more draft picks. You get some more pieces. Make it work. You get the contract off the books. Just stop it. Just don't do it. Just stop it.
I mean, eventually, I think it will get done, man. I just think they're just going to be as difficult as possible about it. That's all. That's all it is.
So we'll move on. So there was a story. We're still getting all of the information, but I have seen video to confirm. Okay. So, number 1 overall pick, Victor Wembanyama, was with Spurs security. Looks like it was like at a bar or some type of gathering place. Okay. Britney Spears decided that she was going to. Hold on, I gotta stop right here. All right, so I got my boy here. What's up? And this is his nickname from me, Vicola. That's my guy though. What's up, Vicola? He knows about this. It's our thing. But so Britney Spears decided that she was just going to go up through the security, grab Victor Wembanyama, and according to the assault report that she filed with the police, she was backhanded, which she actually was, by a member of the security. They never even turned around, so they didn't know who it was. They just saw somebody reaching for Victor Wembanyama, and guy was standing there and kind of just like slapped his hand back and pushed it away. They happened to hit her in the face. And she wants to. She's filed a police report. They've reviewed the information, said that there's nothing that needs to be prosecuted, but she wants an apology from Victor Wembanyama because she had decided to approach him, and then when she was rebuffed and happened to get hit in the face, now she wants an apology, even though he really had nothing to do with it, and you just look like a crazed fan running up to an NBA player. And Vicola, we are good, sir. We are good.
Yes, very good, sir. Thank you for asking. So this is the first I've actually heard of the story, right? So I'm giving y'all my real, honest, real-time, authentic reaction here. What the hell is you thinking? Like I know you think like, okay, I'm a celebrity too, I'm special, but you don't just walk up on people and touch them, right? Especially not people that you don't know personally. And if you are the security person, especially you haven't even seen who it is, right? You just see somebody reaching in. That's your job. You're there to protect this dude. I mean, the dude only weighs like 95 pounds. So, you're there to protect him because somebody, blows on him too hard, he can fly away. So it's understandable that they would have such a knee-jerk reaction to trying to protect him when they see somebody reaching in. So, I mean, I wouldn't apologize. Maybe she should apologize. She should apologize to the security guard. He could have hurt his hand slapping her.
Well, I'll say, man, for me, you're a celebrity. So say I see Britney Spears, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Britney Spears. I mean, I would never do this, but for example, oh, this is Britney Spears. And I run up, try to grab her. Oh, Britney, can I take a picture with you? You don't know what I'm gonna do. You just see me grabbing for you. So what are you gonna do?
Right.
Your security, because you're not gonna be by yourself. Your security is going to push me away. I may get slapped. I may get punched. I may get kicked. Who knows? So you being a star, you understand this. So if you could understand this as a star, why would you think? Why would you have the nerve to think that you could run up to somebody and do that?
Yeah.
You know that wasn't acceptable. You know that wasn't a good idea, and you still decide to do it. So you get what's coming to you, and you got what's coming to you.
I mean, if you had came up from the front, right? If like you walked where he could actually see you, and you called out his name or whatever, you got his attention, right? And then you approached. I can understand why maybe she might feel like as a fellow celebrity she could do that, right? But to like, because if the way you're describing, if I'm understanding correctly, she like walked up from behind or from the side or something where he couldn't even see her.
She walked up from behind. None of them saw her.
Yeah,
nobody saw her.
So what are you thinking? Like you could have been any crazy person.
That's the point. And you know yourself as someone who does have security, that's the protocol in that sort of situation. So come on, man, you got to be better than that. Don't do that. You have to do better than that.
I'm gonna need my people to do better, man. My people need to do better.
You said it, I didn't.
That's why they're my people, man. That's why they're my peoples.
All right, so we've had a raucous of NBA free agency trades.
Not a raucous.
Yes, a raucous amount of trades and free agency signings and all that good stuff that's been happening.
Okay.
So for all the ones that have happened, because there were some, of course, that we talked about last week, but we'll include those as well as all the others, because there's some that reported that now have been done, some that are still, in the wings, some that have been agreed to, deals have been agreed to. A couple that stick out to me here. So I know a minute ago you were talking about Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
So Milwaukee did re-sign Chris Middleton,
right,
to a 3-year, $102,000 contract with a $34 million average salary. They also re-signed Brook Lopez to a 2-year, $48,000 contract. Average salary, of course, $24 million. Excuse me. So, with adding back Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton to the Milwaukee Bucks, what do you feel is going to be their ceiling for next season?
I mean, the thing is, man, this is a tough team to get a feel for, right? Because last year we felt like, hey, it's them and Boston, right? And
y'all felt like it was them and Boston.
And the thing is, they just have struggled. Giannis has struggled to stay healthy. Middleton's struggled to stay healthy. They've had other guys who have been kind of in and out. They, fired their coach, brought in a new coach, and you just have this, this situation where ever since they won the championship, it's almost like they kind of relaxed a little bit, right? And they almost seem to assume they're going to get back there, but they don't. And so this is a team that I think has forgotten what it takes to get there. And I don't think that they're going now. Let me rephrase this. So I don't want to say how far they can necessarily go, but I don't think they're going to make the NBA finals. because how far they go in the playoff will depend on who they see in which round, right? Certain teams are going to knock them out earlier. They might make it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. That doesn't necessarily make them an Eastern Conference Finals team. It just is going to depend on the path they get to take to get there. But this is the team. I think they have the talent, but I think that they kind of fell asleep with the wheel a little bit, and I think some other teams have kind of caught up to them. So I don't anticipate them making it back to the NBA Finals unless they make some more moves.
So they did also sign Malik Beasley from the Lakers.
Hmm.
They did also sign Robin Lopez. These are both 1 year deals for around 220, 2 million 200, around that price range. And then they did also re-sign Jay Crowder. So for me, I'll simply say for them that what I think has happened is injuries. We could talk about that they fell asleep, but can you really fall asleep if you're injured? That team goes, flows, wins, loses with Giannis. Giannis was hurt early on in the series against Miami. Without Giannis, that team is just not the same. I mean, that's any team superstar. If you take the main player away from any team, right, you're gonna get the same thing.
So how many times have we said that exact thing? How many years have we had that be the exact scenario?
Well, this is only the first time Giannis was hurt. The year before, it wasn't Giannis that was hurt; it was Chris Middleton. So, the 2 years since they won a championship, 1 year they lost their second biggest piece in Chris Middleton. Um, the
But
next
I'm
year they
just saying,
lost their biggest piece in
I'm just saying
Giannis.
they've been dealing with injuries every year.
Well, I mean, you call 2 years every year. Well, every year since they were in the finals. But I mean, you can't control injuries. Injuries are something that are going to happen. You can't control them. I mean, I wouldn't say for me a team is not no longer valid due to injury. Now, if you had all the guys there, they were all healthy, and they weren't able to then get back to the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, then yeah, it's time to go in a different direction. But you're expecting to have that team healthy. And Robin Lopez will play a big role for Milwaukee because he'll come in relief of Brooks. So that'll give you a second center in the game most of the times. So now guys like Giannis, Bobby Portis can focus on playing that power forward position only, unless you do happen to go small. But I think that's going to be a big for them because they really needed another guy who could play that center position. Malik Beasley, why he didn't do as much for the Lakers as the Lakers has hoped, he's a 3-and-D guy. If he can make the shots when he's open, because he's going to be open a lot in Milwaukee because of the other guys he's going to be playing with, he's going to be a big pickup for them too. So I think that they have retooled to the amount that they can, which was just sign some guys to be depth on the bench that have had some success in the NBA. But everything goes with the health of Giannis and Chris Middleton. And both of those guys haven't been healthy the last couple of seasons, one year and one next year. So that's a concern, but I don't think it's something that they can't overcome. For me, I'd say the expectation for me from them is at least them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals next season. I don't see a team in the East that's going to get good enough with what moves they can make to knock the top two teams out of being the top two teams. So that's how I feel about the Milwaukee Bucks. Let's talk about your Los Angeles Lakers. So they had made a lot of moves in free agency. So we'll go through those.
Yo.
So we had Austin Reeves signed to a 4-year, $56 million contract, a little bit over $14 million per year.
Right.
You have Rui Hachimura signed a 3-year, 51,000 deal, 51 million. I keep saying thousand, $51 million deal, 17 million guaranteed a year.
Mm-hmm.
You also have D'Angelo Russell re-signing for 2 years, 37 million, 18.5 a year. You have Gabe Vincent that you got from the Miami Heat, 3 years, 33 million, 11 million a year.
Right.
You also, I did see at least one more. Yep. You got Jackson Hayes from the New Orleans Pelicans for 2 years, about 4.6 million, a little bit over 2.3 million a year. You also got Cam Reddish for 2 years, 4.6 million. And then you got Torian Prince on a 1 year, $4.5 million a contract. So a lot of moves made by your Los Angeles Lakers. So the question I'll ask you is, do you think the moves that the Los Angeles Lakers made have made them the best team in the West? And if you don't think it's made them the best team in the West, where do you think, as they currently stand, of course, other teams may make moves, but as of now, where would you place the Los Angeles Lakers as far as contenders in the Western Conference?
Yeah, I think if you look at the Lakers in the second half last year after the trades,
Mm-hmm.
they were playing towards the end like the best team in the Western Conference. Admittedly, that was when Denver kind of let their foot off the gas a little bit. Uh, we all know what happened when they played each other. So to me, those are still the top two teams in the West. Now, do I feel like the Lakers did enough to surpass Denver? I can't say yet because I need to see how these guys are going to show up, right? I need to see how they're going to get out there on the court and play together. What I think the LA did really well was they kept a lot of the pieces that they acquired at the trade deadline. And that was something that was pretty questionable due to the new cap rules. They were able to actually get Austin Reeves at a lower deal than what they expected to probably be able to get him. So great job on that. They also added some pieces around the perimeter. So now you have some extra depth. You have some more 3-and-D guys. But the question still remains. Are you going to be able to hit more three-pointers this year? Are you going to be able to hit them at a higher percentage more appropriately? Is Anthony Davis going to be able to give you another relatively healthy year? Because he was actually relatively healthy for the playoffs. I mean, by Anthony Davis standards, anyways.
Extremely healthy by Anthony Davis standards.
Is LeBron James with another year on his body going to be able to hold up? The real question for me is going to become, are you going to do the smart thing? You brought D'Lo back, right? Which I know I'm like one of the few Laker fans that wanted that. But are you going to be smart enough to actually allow him and allow Austin Reeves when they're on the court to handle the ball more and take some of the wear and tear off of LeBron, right? Because that's going to be important during the regular season to let those guys get those reps and save LeBron for the playoffs. If they do that, I do feel like they have the talent to beat Denver, but it's going to depend on how well those other pieces do. Are those guys going to be able to come in and give you that three-point shooting that you don't have? Are they going to be able to give you that depth? Are they going to be able to take some of the wear and tear off of Anthony Davis? And you also got some big guys, right, that you can actually come in and play for Anthony Davis, take some wear and tear off of him as well, and keep those guys healthy. While I say that all of that could be enough for them to dethrone Denver, I also acknowledge that is asking a whole lot. So I am not going to sit here and say, oh, the Lakers are definitely going to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals next year. That is not a foregone conclusion. But I will say that based on the rosters right now, those are, in my opinion, the top two teams in the West. And right now, until we prove it otherwise, I still got to leave y'all at the top.
So a couple of comments here. So we got Rod with the "What's up, fellas? What's going on, Rod? Love having you on last week, man. Glad you're in the comments." And then Big Ben says, "Number one, it's not Victor's fault, and number two, Brittany be on there. Ooh wee." This is definitely true statements.
Rod probably not happy about what I just said, but he got it.
Who knows, man? Who knows? He may be realistic this year about the team. You never know. We all go through it as a fan. It's just what it is. So a lot of people are talking about my Denver Nuggets here because of the fact that we did lose some guys. We definitely did lose some guys, right? We lost some guys, no doubt about it, no question about it. Yeah. Bruce Brown, was a guy we wanted to keep, but were we going to pay him $22.5 million this coming season? No, we weren't. I don't think anybody besides Indianapolis was going to pay him that. I don't blame him for taking the money. If you offered me that type of money and I've already got a championship, yeah, I'm going to go take the money. Now, you also talk about the fact that we lost Jeff Green. who was another important piece for sure. But, the thing about it is, and I just got through watching our summer league game, we've got some young guys. I'm not going to call anybody out yet because one game doesn't make you ready to play in the NBA. But I will say this: there's some very good young talent that we have as far as first year players and some guys that were on that bench last year that weren't a part of the rotation. That if we start giving some of those guys minutes early in the season, this has been a complaint of mine of Mike Malone since he's been our coach.
Yeah.
Play a deeper rotation throughout the regular season. Give guys minutes. So if situations happen where guys are injured, guys are hurt, they have a possibility to come in and give you some minutes, right? So there's a lot that I feel like Denver can do as far as guys they already have. There's still a couple of moves that can be made to bring in a guy or two that might be successful and helpful to what Denver's attempted to do. But I will agree that I think right now, depending upon moves other teams make, a team like Sacramento could be included in that mix with the top two teams out west. Because, like I said, the biggest thing for them was their best player was hurt. He came out and toughed it out, but he wasn't the same player because he was hurt. And when you lose your best player, it is hard to beat. No. When you lose your best player, it is impossible to be your best.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that they're in. I'm not making an excuse for them. I'm not trying to down anything that you guys did or anybody else did in the playoffs. I'm just saying he did get hurt. And when he got hurt, you could see the difference in how they were able to play. They had other guys that tried to step up, but they're just not the same level. They're not the same tier of player. I look at Golden State. They're keeping that team somewhat the same, but you lost DiVincenzo back to play with two of his college teammates. Right? You traded Jordan Poole for Chris Paul, which is square peg, round hole for me. But speaking of Jordan Poole, I alluded to this last week. I said that if we get Kyle Kuzma to come back and play with Jordan Poole, Washington, they don't have Bradley Beal. They get a lot of money off the books, but they may be in good shape. And lo and behold, Kyle Kuzma re-signed. So now you got a Jordan Poole with a chip on the shoulder with a lot to prove. You got a Kyle Kuzma coming back as a free agent, get a nice 4-year, $102 million deal, getting $25.5 million a year. Got some other young players over in Washington. That's a team that may look pretty good next year. Maybe not a playoff team, but maybe at least challenging for the play-in, which, based on how they played this previous season, would be an upgrade. Any thoughts on Washington or the Denver Nuggets?
I mean, I think, when it comes to the Nuggets, yeah, you lost some pieces, right? But you lost mostly role players. Your stars are still there. Your core is there. The guys who make that team go are there. And will it hurt to lose a guy like Brown? Absolutely. But was he as good as what people think? Or was he mostly a beneficiary of the other guys? I think it's a little bit of both, right? But what that means is you can bring somebody else in, and even if there's a little bit of a drop off in talent, because of the talent around them, they're going to be able to play better, play above what their skill level is. And so that's a benefit that you guys are going to have. So I really don't think that you guys lost that much in the grand scheme of things, right? Because you kept the important pieces. When you talk about Washington, I agree. I mean, it's a good young team. Now, they're not going to be competing for a championship anytime soon or anything like that. But they've got a team there that city can finally get excited about, because it's been a minute since they've really been excited about much going on out that way. So they got a good young team they can start getting a little excited about. And we all know how the Eastern Conference is. So it's very possible that within, a year or two, maybe they can start sneaking in as a 7 or 8 seed in the playoffs and start getting that experience. It's not out of the question.
Get the talent up. Yeah, get the talent up. You can do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I completely agree. But I was just sitting here just looking through a list because I know there was a couple of guys that I was thinking, hey, there would be guys that could fit some of those same roles for the guys that we lost. So a couple of guys that stood out to me specifically. Terrence Ross, right? He's a guy that can do some of those same things. He's still a free agent. unrestricted free agent. Another guys I was looking at was Juan Toscano Anderson, right? The defense, the ability to guard multiple positions, uh, to play multiple positions. I mean, it's not a guy you're going to ask to play big minutes, but could help with that. And another one that's very interesting is a guy that we once had but traded, and that's Bo Bo. Bo is out there, very tall individual, has stayed relatively healthy. Did get cut by Orlando, but there's no need for more big role players there. There's only so many large guys and just role players that you can have. So Bobo may be a guy that we may go out and look at. Another guy, Jermichael Green. He was with the Nuggets before, left and went to Golden State. He's a guy that could return and kind of fit into the role, as well as TJ Warren could fit in and play a big role for us. So those are some guys that I think are out there that could feel that can do some of the things that were being done previously, as well as George Hill. So there are several guys out there that can do some of those things, and I think would fit into what we do and would not be high cost options. So that's just something I saw. I looked up the list earlier, but I don't know where I wrote the list down. Still had to go back and find it again. But just some guys that are still out there, guys in $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 range, not $1 million range. Not guys we're talking about it's going to make $6, $7, $8, $9 million, but guys that $3-4 million range, $2 million range for some of those guys. Have a good year. Use us to go get a big contract. It worked for Bruce Brown. Yeah. Why not do it again?
Do it again.
And again and again and again. So any other specific free agency players that you wanted to discuss or teams that you want to discuss what they did? I did have one more, but I want to see if you had any first.
No, I didn't really have any to really talk about right now.
So the other team, I wanted to talk about is the Phoenix Suns. So the Phoenix Suns were another team that made a lot of moves. It'll be determined if those moves were good moves or not, but a lot of moves were made. So as far as free agency goes for Phoenix, we first know before free agency the Bradley Beal trade. So you got rid of Chris Paul, you were able to get in Bradley Beal. There's a trade that worked really well for Phoenix. Definitely something that helped put them on the spot. So then you start to make some of those back end or bench guy moves. So you signed Eric Gordon to a 2-year, $6.5 roughly $1 million contract. You then re-signed Damian Lee to a 2-year, $5.3 million contract. So this is, I think, a very underrated signing that a lot of people don't know about this guy. But Yuta Watanabe from the Phoenix, you signed him from the Brooklyn Nets for 2 years, about $5 million. You also got Kaida Bates-Diop from the San Antonio Spurs, 2 years, about $5 million. Drew Eubanks from the Portland Trailblazers, a backup center, 2 years, about $5 million. You also got Josh Okogie re-signed for 1 year, $2.3 million contract. And then you signed Chamize Mitu from the Sacramento Kings for 1 year, $2.3 million contract. So a lot of names, some that aren't as well known. But one of the things that we saw about Phoenix and what we've even said here ourselves many occasions, they don't play defense, they don't have depth. So some of these signings are guys that at least get after it on the defensive end and can give you a good 10, 15 minutes of play and help you, on your bench, which I think was definitely a huge weakness for Phoenix last year. What are your thoughts, if you have any, on those moves that Phoenix made? A lot of them, like I said, they all were depth moves, just filling in the roster, getting guys that can be on the bench, getting guys that can play behind the stars, and some of them are going to have to play with them, obviously, because there have to be some other starters on the court. Because I don't see them keeping the center that they currently have long term. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at it, it's like you said, it's depth, obviously, but it's not just about depth. It's about what is that depth doing for you. Obviously, you already have a few guys who can score right? So you're not worried about scoring. What you're worried about is some guys who can come out there and use some defense and can create a little bit of ball movement and some stuff like that, right? So that's what you're hoping these guys are going to give you. Now, are they going to give you that? Don't know. That's to be determined, right? Because there's a reason why you're able to sign a lot of these guys to these like short-term cheap deals. So it's not like they went out and got a guy that you look at and you go, oh yeah, that's going to definitely be a difference maker for them. These are all question mark guys, but with the amount of money that Phoenix has available to them, that's what they could afford to go out and get. So to me, I will say they did the best they could. I already told you earlier that I think the Lakers and the Nuggets are the top two teams in the West. So obviously, I don't feel that it is necessarily going to be enough. Could they end up being the third best team or the fourth best team in the West? Absolutely. Do I see them competing and beating a healthy Lakers or Nuggets team? No, I don't.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I don't see it getting any more from them. So one other interesting piece of NBA news is we did get confirmation that there is going to be a mid-season tournament, sort of like the Commissioner's Cup in the WNBA. They've announced the dates, but they haven't announced all the details. So I'll wait to talk about the dates until we get all the details. They'll probably come out sometime between tomorrow and Monday. So we'll have everything and be able to kind of discuss it in detail next week. So any thoughts on them doing this mid-season, tournament? Apparently, from the information I have gathered, it's going to be top two teams in the East versus the top two teams in the West. Basically, I don't know if they're going to do one in the East versus one in the West, or two in the East versus two in the West, or one in the East versus two in the West, or however. But apparently, the top four teams at the All-Star break will be the ones that will be involved in it, or well, not the All-Star break, but the time that they do it will be involved in it, from what I'm hearing so far. So, any thoughts on that now?
I mean, I want to wait and see what the details are and what this actually looks like, right? Like I'll kind of have form a little bit of an opinion once we know more details. I really won't form a full opinion until we have this first tournament actually happen. Because my initial reaction and thought process is you're the guys who about halfway showed to play the All-Star game to begin with. So even if you're going to say, I don't know if like maybe they're planning on having this for who gets to host home court in the finals or something like that. But even if you put something significant on a line like that, what incentive do these guys have to play yet another game? To put another game's worth of wear and tear on their bodies in an 82 game season.
This is utterly ridiculous to me. It's a joke. It was a joke from the beginning. It's still a joke. It doesn't matter what they're playing for. It's a joke. Like you said, they don't show up for the All-Star game. All the better players load manage, and now you're going to add another set of games for, it looks like, the top two teams from each conference. It's unnecessary. It doesn't bring in, it won't, I don't think, bring any more eyes to the NBA. It works great for the WNBA because they're a growing product and they play. They don't sit out games. They don't do those things. So I think it's unnecessary.
Too.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. It's just one of those things where we're just doing something to do it. We're following somebody else, and it's kind of ridiculous to me.
Yeah. So I mean, man, this is what the NBA wants to do. I mean, obviously, I'm not a fan of it at the moment. Like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and wait and see what happens, see if I'm right. But yeah, my initial reaction is not really positive, but I'm just gonna wait and see what happens.
Nor should it be, sir. Nor should it be. Your reaction should not be positive because this is ridiculous. I'll say it. It's not, again, not necessary. And when you're doing things that aren't truly necessary, they're just ridiculous. And that's exactly what we're getting. Sadly enough, we're getting just another pile of ridiculousness instead of doing something that's going to be, in my opinion, beneficial for the league. I don't know what that would be, honestly. So I'm not saying that nothing should be done and everything's fine, but I'm saying I don't think this is the move. But again, we never know. People could love it. It could be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
I mean, some people love the play-in tournament. We all know how I feel about that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we do. So, on to the NFL. Any thoughts on your and so far what's going on with the NFL in the off season?
No, I mean, this time of year for me, man, like I don't even pay too much attention. This is like NFL reporter boredom season. They just come up with a bunch of foolishness. We're seeing a lot of stories about, guys holding out and, uh, or, guys waiting to be signed. So, you have guys like Dalvin Cook out there that they're not going to sign anywhere until training camp actually starts, right? Why would they? There's no point in them guys going out there and putting wear and tear on their body. I'm already starting to see the conversations about like why, what's going on with Nick Bosa's contract. Is he going to get his extension done? I'm like, the 49ers have like basically inked every extension that they've done in late July, early August. Why are we even talking about this at the beginning of August or at the beginning of July? Right. Like if the team is showing you that they have a pattern, like pay attention to it. It's not that difficult. So, when I see all this stuff, it's whatever. The one that's actually a little bit funny to me is Saquon in New York because I see a lot of people talking about this and talking about he might hold out and all this other stuff. Saquon, you might just want to look at the writing on the wall, bro. Running backs are becoming second class citizens in the NFL. Actually, they're already second class citizens. They're becoming third class citizens. So you might just want to go ahead and take that money that the Giants are promised you this year and call it a day because you might mess around and find yourself like your boy Le'Veon.
So for that one, for me specifically, I think you got to try to get your money.
I mean, I don't blame him for trying to get his money, but
Right.
just say at the end of the day, if you don't make it work, you might want to show up, bro.
Yeah, I mean you're gonna have to show up. If it doesn't work, you have to show up. But you got to try to get your money now because you are a running back. So if you don't get it when you're coming off of a pretty solid season, you may never get it. Look at Miles Sanders, right? It's just it is what it is with the running back position. You are completely correct. They are third class citizens almost at this point. So you have to kind of get that money when it's there. Now, I'm going to be interested once we start training camps to see a lot of these rookies because we're hearing a lot of great things about a lot of these rookies in the mini camps and the rookie OTAs and rookie camps and things. So I want to see when we get them into training camp, we get into the preseason games, how we see like Bryce Young, the other quarterbacks that were drafted, some of these highly touted defensive players on multiple teams. I just want to see if these guys are going to be guys that teams are looking at to at least have a role in year one, or if the expectations are too high from fan bases, from the media, and these guys need some time to develop. That'll be interesting for me to see, and also the second year guys, so the guys that were rookies last year, how they're going to progress. And a lot of those guys are now going to be asked to step into different roles on their teams. So seeing how they progress is going to be very interesting to me as well. So those are definitely some of the things that I'm going to be looking for in regards to the NFL in the upcoming season. So, as news drops, things break about the NFL, definitely tune in, Play Caller Sports Talk, because, that's what we talk about.
Yeah, well, we're gonna start getting a lot of NFL stuff worth talking about. I think over the next 3 or so weeks. So end of July, beginning of August. That's when things are gonna really start picking up, right? That's when we're gonna start seeing guys in pads, guys actually going out there having to play, getting a little bit physical with each other. That's when we're gonna really start to see where some of these guys are. We'll start having some preseason games where we can at least kind of see some of the younger guys get on the field and compete.
And I wanted to touch on one thing.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things being said about Stephon Diggs, right? And his relationship with Josh Allen and the apparent disrespect that he's shown. What I would simply say is pay attention to the star wide receiver and how he's feeling about the team that he's on. You call him a diva. You can say this about him. You can say that about him. But what you have to do is you have to understand there's a reason why he's acting this way. I'm not going to say what I feel the reason is, but I'm just going to say pay attention. Josh Allen has to be on his game. Josh Allen has to develop. Josh Allen has to be the quarterback that's going to help that team get somewhere. Because if you tell me this team is playing well, they're winning games, they're getting to the playoffs, they're going deep, they're making the AFC Championship game, they're contending for the Super Bowl, even if Stephon Diggs is getting exactly the same numbers, that he's going to be upset. No, he sees something and he's not happy about it. I know what I feel like it is. I know what's been reported, but I'm going to wait to see if that's accurate or not. But I will say, where there's smoke, there's fire. Stephon Diggs, the number one receiver on the team, is unhappy and wants DeAndre Hopkins brought in or some more help at the wide receiver position. There's a reason for that. Pay attention.
You know, this is gonna be my thing here, right? Um, so first of all, I said last year, and I took some flack for saying it, but I was like, Josh Allen hasn't proved anything yet. Everybody wants to put him on his pedestal, and I'm like, the dude hasn't proved anything yet. If you want respect, you got to go out and you got to beat Cincinnati or you got to beat Kansas City in the playoffs. And once again, he failed to do that.
Very true. Very true. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, just want to quickly, I pulled it up here. Let's go over where we're standing with the WNBA right now. Uh, 1 second, guys. Of course, when you want to find something, it gives you a difficult time and your screen doesn't want to work right. Here we go. All right, so we're going to start with the Eastern Conference of the WNBA. For time, we'll just kind of go over, where everyone's sitting at. So, of course, top 8 teams would be in the playoffs. So, as I said, as of now, the New York Liberty are number 1 in the East at 12-4. The Connecticut Sun are number 2 at 13-5. The Washington Mystics are number 3 at 9-7. The Atlanta Dream are 4 at 8-8. And then the Chicago Sky are 5th at 8-9. And based off the records in the West right now, all 5 of those teams would be in the playoffs if the playoffs start today. And then the Indiana Fever would be sitting on the outside at 5-12. Now, over on the Western Conference for the WNBA, just keep in mind 6 and 16s. The Vegas Aces, best record in the WNBA, 16-1, just finally lost the game. The Dallas Wings are second at 8-9. And then the Minnesota Lynx are third at 8-9 as well. So based on records, those 3 teams, if the playoffs start today, would be in the playoffs as well for the WNBA. And on the outside, interestingly enough, would be the LA Sparks at 7-11, Seattle Storm at 4-13, and the Phoenix Mercury at 3-13. Very surprised the Sparks and the Mercury are where they're at. But teams like the Wings and the Lynx have been on the come up, and it's kind of close with the Sparks. 7-11, so they're really close to being, a team in. But it's just interesting to see from year to year how things change. The Sky were champs a couple of years ago. Now would be the last team in the playoffs. So just interesting to see how that kind of plays out from year to year, especially with the changes in the WNBA and the limited amount of roster spots and people that you get to keep because of how everything's set up for now. But just wanted to at least, touch on how things are looking standing-wise in the WNBA. And Stephen, I believe before we close, you had a bit of news you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, man. So we talked earlier about ESPN and how they are falling apart at the seams. Well, your boys are doing the exact opposite. Because as we've been telling y'all for a while now, big things are happening around here with the Play Callers. And we are excited to announce that officially July 28th will be the first episode, but we're going to have a brand new Play Caller show that will air exclusively on 99.1 here in Atlanta. So, yes, your boys will actually be on the radio. So very excited to announce that partnership with them. And I believe that you can also find the station through TuneIn. So if you're not here in the Atlanta area and you want to listen to us, that show will be on Friday mornings. So if you want to tune in and listen to that, I believe you can do that on TuneIn radio app as well.
Yep. So first of all, some other things that will be happening with the Play Callers and Play Callers Sports Productions. So stay tuned.
Yep. This is just the beginning, guys. This is huge, but this is just the beginning. And to
Absolutely.
quote Booker T, can you dig it, suckers?
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, we're going to go ahead, tap out for the evening. Appreciate everyone that joined live, all those that do watch the replay as well. And don't forget, tell 2 of your friends and 4 of your enemies. Just because they don't like you doesn't mean they won't like us. Enjoy your week. Check us out next week.